These days, we're obsessed with the new. Everything's bigger, better, brighter than ever. So it's a comfort to know that one tradition endures, that the spirit of Anzac lives on. And nowhere is it more robust than in Gallipoli, Western Queensland, where the kids have found a unique way to honour the fallen. They scoured the archives, researching the lives of the young men from the district who went off to fight and die in the First World War. Then set out on an emotional pilgrimage to France and Belgium, following in the Anzac's footsteps. A new generation of Australians remembering the old. This is a school excursion like no other. These kids have travelled from outback Queensland to the heart of Europe to see where 90 years ago an entire generation of young Australians, just like them, was lost. This will be a highly personal and deeply emotional mission.
The first bit here, the one that's facing the gates, these are the list of the people who died during World War I.
Their journey began a year ago back in Australia, in Gallipoli, a speck on the map west of Brisbane. Teacher Melissa Taylor asked her students to choose a soldier's name off the town cenotaph and find out everything about his life and death.
So who were these people? Were they husbands? Were they sons? Did they have sons themselves? We need to try and find out in our research, who were they? All around Australia, we've got...
They were farmers, butchers and bakers, country boys, lives from a century ago, about to take on a whole new meaning.
Try and pick a name and think about, well, what possibly did they do? Were they your age? Were they a bit older? Were they married? So you're going to become a part of the story and keep it going. So he's 18 years and 10 months old when he...
No, he's 17. I think he lied about his age.
He lied about his age, did he?
Each of the kids adopted a soldier.
By your last letter, you wanted to know.
Searching for each man's story. It became very personal.
I think he was only like 22 or 23 when he enlisted, so really young.
And you can see the rising sun badge on him.
Inevitably, as time went on, they began to realise those soldiers were once just everyday kids like them. Teenagers who had no idea of the hell on earth that awaited them in Europe.
Like, he was 4 years older than me, and that's really hard to comprehend. Like, when you think about it, they're only just going to uni now or leaving school or so on, and you couldn't imagine even picking up a gun, firing at anyone.
That's the last letter that he wrote. That was on the 16th.
School captain Jack Lucas chose a farmer, Irving Thompson, who signed up with the 5th Australian Pioneers. He was just 17. How old are you?
I'm 17, the same age as Irving was.
Right.
He lied to get in. Put down 18 as his age. It just it gives you a reality check, because I'm planning things to do after I leave school and go into uni and stuff, and he just signed up to go to war.
The last time Irving Thompson's family saw him, he was pedalling his bike down to the station to go and sign up. Irving's little sister, Nia, now 93, still lives in Gundawindi. Mrs. Woods, hello. She never met her brother.
I'm Jack Lucas.
She was born when Irving was on his way to France. Do you remember your mother talking about him?
Oh, all the time. I can remember as a tiny little thing, she was always crying when she got those letters.
When you hear Irving's letters, you know why.
We went out last night under heavy machine gun and artillery and rifle fire.
I can't be thankful enough for you giving me all this information on Irving, because it feels like I've got a story.
It's just incredible to go there because there's so many graves as far as your eye can see.
93 years ago, Irving's journey to France took months on a troop ship. It took today's kids just 48 hours. They went straight to the old front line at the village of Fromelles, the first big battle for the Australians after Gallipoli. 2,000 of our diggers were to die here in a single night.
Irving and his platoon, they've probably been in this town walking down this street.
Well, that's true, isn't it? There's every chance that they walked down this road, marched down this road to the battle.
So this is a picture of Irving's division in England before they headed out. And they all look pretty keen, but I don't think they really knew what they were getting themselves into. This is the day before the battle in the trenches. That's the German front line there.
These are the trenches, are they?
Yeah. I think this was taken on the night of the battle. That's the Australian line there. And you can see there's not that much gap between them.
What's this countryside remind you of?
It's almost like home, because there's no hills in home except for the one down the back street.
No hills meant no cover against German machine guns, yet the Australians went out in wave after wave. You can still reach out and touch the wreckage of that terrible night.
It's already been blown up. Broken up there. And it's filled. I want to know if it's German or like Britain or something.
It was almost a throwback to the American Civil War. Sort of, two lines of men just standing there killing each other, except most of the killing was done by the Germans.
No one tells the human story of the war better than author Les Carlyle. What was the Battle of Fromelles all about?
What the generals thought Fromelles was all about was a diversion. The Battle of the Somme had begun down south. The idea was, we'll attack the Germans at Fromelles and tie them down there so they can't send reserves down south to the Somme. It's probably the most tragic night in Australian history, that night at Fromelles.
Irving Thompson actually survived that tragic night, but then he made a courageous offer to go out and bring in his dying mates.
And the next day on the 21st, he volunteered to go and collect the wounded and the injured. And it's a pretty brave thing to volunteer for it because they're still under fire.
You had literally thousands of Australians lying out in no man's land, in shell holes and other things, shockingly wounded, some of them.
Must have been absolutely terrifying for young blokes like Irving Thompson.
It's almost beyond, I think, our imagination. When you think flat land, totally exposed to German fire, and everywhere you look, there's a dead or wounded Australian. It really was one of the great horror shows of the war, and poor Irving was in the worst part of it, and of course that's where he was killed.
Irving Thompson's body was taken from here and buried in the next village, and that's where Jack is going now, to find Irving's grave and to read his eulogy.
I found him. Irving was killed on the 21st of July in the Battle of Fromelles, in which 5,000 and more Australians were killed. Many of the Allied forces had been wounded in laying in no man's land since the night before. Irving volunteered with the others to go out and bring them in. He was caught by a sniper's bullet in barbed wire, only 17 years of age. They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down the sun and in the morning, we will remember them.
We will remember them.
Lest we forget.
Lest we forget.
Another day, and for the kids of Gundawindi, another story of sacrifice by their district's finest. We're on our way to the small Belgian town of Messines. It's here, along this small forest pathway, that many of the Gundawindi diggers gave their lives as part of the 35th Battalion.
The 35th got very badly gassed in an area called Plug Street Wood. As they were going up to the start line, they got hit by gas shells, and they had very heavy losses there.
And this is the Plugstert Forest. The diggers had trouble with that name, so they called it simply Plug Street. It's here that so many of them died, groups of mates killed together by the same shell burst. And it's here, in this tiny cemetery, that they're buried together, their tombstones standing shoulder to shoulder. One of them was Private John Barker, a colliery train driver. He was 19, but looked so much older. When you look at that, how old would you say that bloke is at first glance?
30.
Shelby Thompson, who researched Private Barker, offered a reason why.
And like what he saw, I couldn't even imagine. Like sitting here, I can't imagine what they all went through. It's so beautiful at the moment. And to think it was so muddy and so noisy and so deadly. And there would have been like artillery everywhere, people everywhere. You would have like people lying dead everywhere.
With his experience in the coal mines, Private Barker may well have assisted in Britain's earth-shattering plan to take Messines. They kicked off the attack with 19 gargantuan explosions.
The British for some time had been tunnelling under the German lines. When the attack opened, they set off all these mines under the German lines. It was the greatest man-made explosion to that time. And it was heard in London. So if he was still alive then, he would have seen probably the greatest fireworks display the world's ever seen at that point.
John Barker's 35th Battalion helped achieve the main objective. They drove the Germans out of Messines, but the battle cost 26,000 casualties, half of them Anzacs. All the graves in this nearby cemetery are Australian, and here Shelby finds the resting place of John Barker. This is where it hits home.
Before us today rests the headstone of Private John Albert Barker of the 35th Battalion. John has not yet received an official service, nor has any of his family had the opportunity to commemorate his life here at his final resting place.
Now, at last, the eulogies that the families of so many of Gundawindi's lost sons have never had the chance to give.
It was a far cry home for the 26-year-old butcher who attended the Gundawindi State School. Private Donald Edward Boodle fought and died on this day, lest we forget.
In peace, sons bury their fathers. In war, fathers bury their sons. Today we are gathered together to commemorate a son of Australia, Thomas Newborn Bennett.
Walter won a few medallions throughout his years of serving in the war. These included a Star Medal, a British War Medal, and a Victoria Medal. Walter was just one of the many men who fought for our country, for us today.
I am thankful for the great sacrifice that he made for his country, for my country, for our country, Australia.
It was such a moving ceremony, thinking that cemetery, they were all from around our district. And to all think that they all died there over like 3 days, they all died together, all doing what they thought was right, for their country.
They shall grow not old as they are left to grow old.
An 18-year-old kid can go to Gallipoli or France or Belgium and sort of think, you know, if I'd been born back 4 generations, I might be in the ground here. It's as awful as that. How many future prime ministers did we lose? How many university professors did we lose? How many famous writers did we lose? How many good people did we lose? The damage that did to Australia, you can't calculate.
At every stop, the kids from Gundawindi were reminded that while the war was eventually won, Australia's losses were beyond measure. They told the stories that lie in just some of these graves. But now they know there's so much more to tell.
Oh, I couldn't even fathom going into it. Like, I doubt any of my mates could either. That's the real stuff, that's in the trenches.
But if you had to for Australia, would you do it?
Oh yeah, you'd do it for Australia. You'd do it for these blokes if it came around again.
Yes, you would.